able to get to a deal that was both beneficial to us and beneficial to her. But that came with a lot of time and a lot of effort. The monthly rental income has increased now further than this. At the time it was 3,600. So profit to us is 2,000 a month, and then that kind of was a 15% return on capital.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mac. How are you, Mac? Good to see you.
I'm very well, thanks. How are you? I can only see my head, and then you sat next to a giant image of my head.
Yeah, it's quite scary, actually, if I'm really honest.
For you, maybe, not for me. Not for me.
Oh dear, we always want a bit of banter, Mac. So let's talk about, first, a bit of background about yourself, Mac. Tell everyone what you did before property. And you did something that was quite drastic when you decided, and I don't recommend to do what Mac did, just to be really clear before he tells you, but do you want to tell a little bit about your story, Mac?
Sure. Should I put slides up?
If you've got slides, yeah, absolutely share those slides if it's on a slide, or you can just talk through it. It's up to you, really.
Okay, well, yeah, so my story is, I'm still a registered pharmacist. I was working in the NHS. So back end of 2019, my exit role out of the NHS was a chief pharmacist, head of medicines management for a clinical commissioning group. Do you want me to go into the background story of how I came onto?
You can if you want, yeah.
Yeah. So then I in about 2019, as everybody's aware, the NHS is under a significant amount of pressure, and even back then it was just as bad. 2019 we had a particularly bad kind of 6-month period whereby we had some personal issues that we were going through, health issues. My father had a heart attack, and then we kind of made a big decision to make a significant change, because obviously all this stress that we were carrying was coming home with us on a kind of daily basis. So I attended a PIN meeting in Liverpool. My best friend, his sister used to be the PIN host, a couple called Julie and Ollie, and they're not the PIN host for Liverpool anymore, but I rang them and said, you guys are really got your stuff together, you seem really happy, what's the secret? And they said, well, come down to the PIN meeting and have a chat. And I've mentioned this story before, but I think it's worth mentioning. I went down to the PIN meeting, and afterwards I came back and I spoke to my wife Leslie. I was like, something's going on, they're really happy, they seem to be enjoying being around people. That's not right. They're on something. I know this. I've seen this from a clinical perspective. I can tell you there's something.
Obviously on drugs.
Yeah, they were doing something. I know, because I'm quite au fait with those kinds of things. So then had a chat with them, and they were saying it's really around property, and they said I should read your book. So I read your book, signed up to the Accelerator program. And then on the Sunday of the Accelerator program, came home and kind of had to sit down in a quiet room and just rock myself to sleep that night. And then
it's quite,
actually, I think it might have been
the intense,
Wednesday after.
It's quite an intense course, that 3-day Mastermind. So it's far more intense than this, isn't it?
Yeah, God, the 3-day was an onslaught. I mean, there's so much information, and especially for at the time, a lot of those concepts and ideas were completely new to me. I had no idea that you could even do certain things and approach property in a certain way. I had a very kind of antiquated perspective around property, that you need, a lot of money, and then there's basically it's buy, keep, and sell. And actually, that was a big eye-opening experience for me. And then later that week, kind of had a discussion with my wife, and I decided to hand my notice in, sign up to the 12-month program, the Mastermind year. That was back end of 2019. So I think we started in 2019. Yeah. And my 3-month at work ended beginning of January 2020. Which, if you go back now, it's a really interesting time for the NHS because of COVID. Yeah. So that was really when COVID was about to embed. So I left my job in Jan, and I've been full-time ever since.
And just to be clear, we don't encourage people to leave their jobs and take that drastic action. But I guess, I know we talked about it, you said you really didn't want to be there, and you wanted to burn your bridges to make sure that you really did this, right? Because you saw the opportunity.
Yeah, so I think if my wife was here, she'd tell you that I'm not necessarily impulsive, but I kind of need the focus to be able to do whatever it is I'm doing. So if I'm doing something, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I certainly wouldn't recommend it, because actually it was a big leap out of my comfort zone. Certainly there was a risk, and recognizing that COVID kind of took over the world at that point, certainly within the first 2 quarters of 2020, that was a real kind of baptism of fire. I certainly wouldn't recommend it, but I think we did some of our best deals in COVID.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. When the world is falling apart and everyone's panicking, that's often when the best opportunity. And I keep on saying, I think this year, 2023, because so many landlords are selling up, for example, it's going to be such a great year. So this is the year to get on with it and do it. Don't think, oh yeah, I'll do it next year or the year after. No, this is the time. And unlike Mac, you can absolutely do this if you've got a full-time job, and it's a bit of sacrifice and time and effort to do that. But if you use some of your spare time to get your properties going, to prove to yourself you can do this, and then once you've got a good income coming in, then you can give up your job. It's probably a slightly less stressful way of doing it than you did, Mac. But having said that, you took massive action and you got great results, and you got up to the properties you bought in that first year. You're one of our 100K Club members, aren't you? So they're generating over £100,000 of profit from the deals you bought in the first year, which, given it was during COVID, is pretty amazing, right?
Well, so our year was extended to 18 months, if you remember,
yes,
Simon.
we did that.
So I had a bit of an extra leeway there, so I had 6 extra months.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at the end of that, the total deals, I think it was 8 deals in the 18th month period, and it was 2.7 million at the time.
Yeah.
And we were cash flowing just over £100,000.
Which is pretty amazing. And did you, when you left your pretty well-paying job, obviously you had an expectation of what you could achieve. Did you think you would achieve as much as that in that time period?
So we set a goal of 50 rooms. So I wanted to get to 50 rooms. We didn't get to 50 rooms. And in fact, halfway through that first year, 2020, we had 20 rooms empty because COVID restrictions were and people weren't allowed to move into new houses. So it was really quite tricky. But to answer your index question, I kind of wanted to do more. I before Mastermind, I was watching the videos around Billy Turriff and Michael Dong, and I wanted to and Dan Hill, and I want to kind of aspire to be as big as those guys. Yeah. We did a lot, and I think it was brilliant. But I think we could have done more, actually, in hindsight, and actually on reflection, which is always a great thing to look back on. There were some deals that actually now would have probably been okay, but at the time, our tolerance was kind of, although quite a high risk tolerance. I think at the time we were kind of like, okay, let's just slow down a little bit. We might be biting off more than we can chew here. So yeah, I think we could have done more. Let's
talk through one of your young professional deals. Just so you want to put your slides up so people can get a feel for it and just to understand, because it's great. It's great to talk theory, but when you actually look at the case studies of people who've done it, I think it will make a lot of sense. So if you want to talk us through this, that'd be great.
So can you
we can see the slides? Yeah, the Salford Property. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's me. If anybody wants to get in contact, or if you want to throw some questions at me, please do. And I've done that verbally. I'll leave that on there because it's useful maybe. Because I didn't mention the previous. We became accidental landlords back in 2007, so we did have a single property that was, at the time we didn't realise it was a HMO, a 3-bed HMO, which we purchased for 125, and then we refinanced that property in order for us to kickstart this property journey, and that the value of that doubled. Not actually doubled. It was about 200,000. So we took out a significant amount of equity there. In order to start. So our predominant areas of focus are the northwest. So we look at Manchester, Salford, and Liverpool. But this example was an existing HMO. It was 7-bedroom HMO in Salford, in the area that we were looking, and we sent out kind of blanketed Manchester, Salford, and Liverpool with regards to landlord letters, and surprisingly they did work. Although I was really sceptical about doing that before. So landlord got in touch, and she wanted to get rid of this specific property, and at the time, COVID was playing in our hands because there was a lot of reticence in the market. People were really unsure of what to do. So again, I mentioned it before, some of the best deals, I wish we'd done more in that time, but we didn't. So we managed to get a good dialogue with her and developed a decent relationship. I still text her occasionally now. And we bought another property off Catherine again, which was actually Q1 of 22, so the following year, and it was relatively tired, as you can expect. It was a large kind of Victorian house. This is a downstairs bedroom. Someone was actually living in this room. There's some damp in the walls. Extremely basic accommodation in terms of what you would expect. You can see at the front door there's a large curtain that was kind of reducing the draft that was coming through. So there was not too many systemic issues with the house. The actual house was fine, but it was just in desperate need of some love and attention.
Yeah.
Although it was running and she was happy with the way it was running, her expectations for the value of the property were quite high. And actually, it took us quite a while to get to the point where we were able to get to a deal that was both beneficial to us and beneficial to her. But that came with a lot of time and a lot of effort. So then, sorry to just remind people that, so the rooms were very, very basic. And then we essentially worked with some designers and kind of took it, emptied it. The house was empty, redecorated it, and gave the rooms a kind of fresher, I think the word is vibe. This is what the people use nowadays. So it had a really good fresh vibe about it, and tried to make it kind of Instagrammable. So it's interesting that the demographic that were in the house previously were slightly older, kind of, I'd say blue collar workers. And then we repurposed this, even within a young professional market, we repurposed it to kind of white collar workers that were working in the city, because this is a hop, skip and a jump away from Manchester city centre. And then these are the numbers. I've only actually done one example, Simon, but I'm quite happily go through
one's great. Yeah, let's just talk through the numbers for us then.
So agreed purchase price was 330. She originally wanted much more. So it kind of, that negotiation around managing her expectations was really the biggest challenge after the whole thing.
Yeah.
£20,000 refurb. It may seem like a lot.
On that point, Mac, I want to just pick it up because it's really important. Very often, most landlords we speak to, they are over optimistic about how much their property's worth, and so we might be prepared to pay a certain price. They want much more, and many investors would say, "Oh, that doesn't work," and walk away. But it's worth, if you think it's a good deal, it's worth persevering. Many sellers become more motivated over time, but it's that discipline, isn't it? A habit to keep going back, keep building the relationship, keep working, because too many people just want an instant result and they move on to the next thing and forget all the sellers they've spoken to who could become more motivated with time.
Yeah, and actually, irrespective of people's motivation, I think that, it definitely comes down to managing people and working with people. And actually, if they're in the market to sell, then they are motivated to a certain degree. If their expectations are high, then actually part of your gift and part of developing a win-win situation is understanding or conveying the message of actually your expectations are high. This is why I think they're high. I'm not trying to do you out of a deal. And these are the comparisons I can tell you are. This is what I need to do to the property. This is what I will do. And I'm relatively transparent with that. So I kind of tend to say, this is how much I'm going to spend. This is what I'm going to do at the end of it. Luckily, I think most landlords, luckily from our perspective, I think most landlords are either jaded or have an issue that they want to, that if they're speaking to you, then there is an interest there. So there is a problem that they have. And actually, what we try to do is just fix that problem. I'm seeing it now. even now, I think some even institutional investors are really high in terms of their valuations, and that's not going to change. There's always going to be that, but their motivation changes the longer that those properties are on the market for, or the longer that they realise that actually these are high numbers. I do probably need to do something, and if you maintain that open communication, I think that's always quite key.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to the refurb then.
So yeah, 20,000 refurb. I think it was around 20,000. I think it was probably about 18 and a half. But all in, I think it was about 20. And then the end value was so I'm going off a commercial valuation here. So the top end of the commercial value was 420, but we didn't take the top end valuation because we wanted to keep our loan to value at a reasonable amount. We locked in for 5 years. And then the monthly rental income has increased now further than this. At the time, it was 3,600. So profit to us is 2,000 a month, and then that kind of was a 15% return on capital.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were really happy with it, and more better than that. After the refurb was completed, although we had challenges in the market with regards to new tenants moving in, we had a huge response in terms of people wanting to view rooms and get in as quickly as possible. And actually, as soon as the restrictions were lifted, that house was filled in, I think, in the first 3 weeks. So it was cash flowing really quickly. And we still kind of maintain 100% occupancy on that. Rooms do not stay empty at that house for more than a couple of days. So it's a really kind of testament to make your rooms really attractive, and then people really want to live there. I know you mentioned before I came on, Simon, sorry, about a community.
Yes.
So developing a community isn't necessarily something that we overtly try to do, but we do try to create environments where people can come together.
Yeah.
But I'm quite an introverted person, so the thought of me spending an evening with people that I don't really know that well is just awful. I'm sweating right now. I'm wearing a sweatsuit. So
well, you're doing a great job, by the way, Mac. Just to reassure you, so I really appreciate it.
Lots of sedatives, Simon. Lots of sedatives.
Yeah. Which is how you know about all the drugs. Right. Anyway, moving on. But I want to draw this to a close, just to remind people that this is a classic scenario of finding a tired landlord. Someone is responding to your letter. There's some sort of pain there, and very often they haven't kept the property up to scratch. They're not charging the maximum rents. And so structure, this was all set up as this is low hanging fruit. You don't have to spend 60, 70, 100,000 pounds ripping this out. It's all there. It's just cosmetically improving it, maybe putting some better furniture in. 20k spend to get this kind of rental income, that's a great deal. And I guess it's a lower return on investment because you haven't really added enough value to significantly refinance it. But the next time you do that, you'll probably take lots of capital out, I would have thought.
Yeah, so back end of, when was it? Well, we locked in now. So at the end of this period, yeah, absolutely, I'll take the money out and we'll go again. But I think the important factor is that we are happy with that 15% return on investment and return on capital, and recognizing that that is a safe bet. We didn't have to do a huge amount of work on that. It was in an Article 4 area, so the values, the kind of general capital appreciation is going to continue as it is anyway. There is a finite amount of HMOs in that area of this standard, so we're always, touch wood, going to maintain a decent level of occupancy as well. So it's safe to a certain degree.
So do you think most of you're much better than the average HMO in the area?
Well, I mean, I would say that, but things like design aren't are relatively easy to replicate. So I think the standard is improving around us, but that just means after a while I'll need to improve ours again. I'm happy to do that because it will kind of factor that into the numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I was going to say something really self-indulgent then. What I think is that if you're improving the standard in a certain area, then naturally everybody starts to think, okay, I'm going to have to do something about it, and then you kind of get to this position where you keep improving. So that's really beneficial. I think as landlords we kind of get a bit of a bum deal because people think we're providing subpar accommodation, but certainly I think at the top end of the market, there are some really, really nice places
Yeah.
that, you know, part of me would want to leave my wife and kids for to live there.
Well, we
That
better
was a
move indeed, but we're going to move on quickly, Mac.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, so thanks so much for coming and sharing. Let's just talk. Obviously, is it mainly young professionals you're focusing on, and if so, why is that the case?
So we have some student HMOs as well. I mean I've got another slide of some more
Okay, yeah, show
young
us those.
professionals
Yeah.
HMOs. So and part of the reason why we like young professional HMOs is because I think the to a certain degree I think the tenant types are maturer, they have better jobs, they're more inclined to keep houses in a better condition, but that isn't to say that we don't have problems with our young professional HMOs. There are challenges with both types, but I guess there's just we have a kind of natural proclivity towards young professional HMOs. I just like those spaces. I think the houses and the areas that we're buying in just tend to be nicer, and I think they'll probably hold their value better than our, say, student houses. The student units that we've got are in slightly lower affluent areas because that's where students live, that's where they can afford to live, but the quality of the housing is good. So we kind of do something similar with our rooms. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, Simon. I don't know why we like young professional market.
And out of interest, because it is different around the market, Neil's saying that he includes the bills in his student houses. I don't in my student house. When your student houses, I guess, are they coming as groups?
Yeah, they come as groups. We do include the bills on all of our units, so that's both young professionals and student HMOs, and it has been quite tricky. But what's happened is that the rents have gone up to kind of match the increase in energy prices. Yeah. So although we're not necessarily seeing that on our profit and loss, we are seeing that the rents are going up, and they have gone massively up over the past year and a half. Yeah. So we've just got to kind of keep up with that market. We are exploring looking at using energy caps, fair use policies, but we've not implemented anything yet. But certainly for the medium term, I think we'll maintain all bills included. It's certainly a very attractive offer when you're looking at it from a tenant type, I think.
Definitely. It's nice and easy. I mean, anyone who's lived in a shared house before, you might have had experience where the energy bill comes in and people are arguing about who's used the toaster more than someone else. So especially if people don't know each other, you're taking all that hassle away. That's why generally we do include the bills. But with students, if they're a group of friends, it's easier for them to sort out amongst themselves. So Mac, this has been really useful. Thank you so much for sharing. And one final thing to share, obviously, as you know, your sister is now on the current Mastermind, and she reliably told me she was going to kick your ass in terms of results. So
well, let's see.
So there's going to be a lot of. Now you had 18 months. She's only got 12 months, so we'll take that into account as well. But
well, there's obviously some favouritism there, isn't there? Because you've I can see she's just messaged. Brilliant.
Yes, she's here as well, listening in. Hi, Juhi.
Yeah, no, it was life changing. So hopefully she gets as much out of it as possible. I mean, I do cast quite a big shadow. But let's,
she's got big shoes to follow, right? But she can stand on your shoulders, right? And see. And I think she said to me, well, if Matt can do it, I can obviously do it. I think that was what she kind of said, something like that.
That's our family motto. If you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Matt, you're such a good sport. Thanks so much for sharing and being a real inspiration. Let's hear it from Mac. Thank you so much. Brilliant. I do hope you got massive value from watching that inspirational case study. Hope you took lots of notes and start using some of the hints and tips in your property investing journey. Now, if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure you hit the bell icon so you'll get notified whenever we bring out new content and training that's going to help you be a more successful investor. If you got any comments, just list those below, and I'll come back and answer as many as I can. And by the way, there's going to be a link below for you to get some further training so you can find out how you can get the kind of results we've just been talking about in this interview. As ever, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill. See you in the next video we've lined up for you.